the 168-hour reality check. No matter what your daily life looks like, university exams creeping closer, kids demanding attention every hour, or long meetings filling your calendar, the same bottom line applies. Every person starts the week with 168 hours. That fixed total doesn't change for anyone. But here's the nuance. While the number is identical, how those hours get pulled apart looks very different depending on your circumstances. American Time Use Survey data and Gallup research show consistent variations. Women, for instance, spend more hours on household tasks and caregiving. Shift workers lose time to irregular schedules, and single parents see large portions consumed by child-related activities. The total doesn't budge from 168, but the obligations that bite into it are not evenly distributed, and that shapes what free time looks like in practice. This is what makes the spreadsheet framework powerful. Instead of imagining time as elastic, it forces you to confront the stubborn cap everyone faces. The math itself is straightforward. Imagine starting with a blank chart, 168 little boxes laid out line by line. As you fill them in with non-negotiables, sleep, commuting, meals, errands, childcare, your budget shrinks. The space that once felt wide open quickly narrows. Even if you imagine yourself efficient, those hours have already been spent. That single visualization is often what snaps the fog away. We say yes to too many things because we pretend those blank boxes exist, when in fact, they're already taken. What most people find surprising is not that the hours exist, but how many are already spoken for. A national average from the American Time Use Survey highlights it clearly. Adults spend about 9 hours each day sleeping. Put that across a week, and nearly 63 of the 168 hours are gone before you consider a single email, class, or meeting. When paired with over 5 hours daily on leisure and sports, the structure of most people's schedules is nearly predetermined. That is the reality check. Before you add unique factors like caregiving or work travel, whole categories already dominate the week. This is why two people with the same weekly total may lead dramatically different lives. A student without dependents might discover 2 or 3 flexible hours each day, while someone supporting kids or aging parents finds almost none. The time itself hasn't changed. The constraints have. High productivity doesn't emerge from having bonus hours. It comes from recognizing what is left after life's non-negotiables, then deciding what to do with what remains. Hard work does play a role, of course, but research on household activities and childcare shows that effort isn't evenly applied to the same starting canvas. For one person, hard work occurs in professional projects. For another, it begins well before sunrise with caregiving duties. Success needs to be understood in both allocation and context. Tracking those distinctions is where the spreadsheet matters most. It cuts through the guesses we carry in our heads. Many people assume they work around 50 hours a week or sleep roughly 7 hours a night. But once you quantify the exact hours with pen and paper or cells in a sheet, the numbers rarely match the intuition. That's when clarity arrives. A young professional might realize that a quick scroll before bed silently eats 2 extra hours. A parent might see that housework is not just scattered minutes, but almost 20 hours across the week. Only after these totals come into view can you start altering them. The financial metaphor illustrates it well, just tightened to the essentials. Think of time the way you think of money. Both are capped resources and both require accounting. If 2 households earn the same salary, one may save and build stability while the other drowns in debt. The difference isn't income, it's choices and tracking. Time works the same way. Without recording where hours go, you'll hit 0 without knowing why. With a statement right in front of you, adjustments become possible, whether that means switching obligations, anticipating bottlenecks, or setting aside blocks in advance. When people finally see the numbers down on paper, reactions split into 2 camps. One side feels genuine relief. They realize there are pockets of usable time they'd overlooked. Maybe television stretched across several evenings, or commuting time could double as podcast learning. The other side feels a sharp disappointment. They believed they were disciplined, only to uncover just how much vanished into activities they didn't value as highly as they thought. Relief energizes curiosity, while disappointment presses for reform. Either way, vision replaces vagueness, and that shift reshapes decision-making. The underlying principle comes down to trade-offs. Each action draws from the same limited pool. What feels like a minor choice, watching one show, putting off an email, checking messages for 5 quick minutes, compounds into serious shifts when multiplied across the week. People fail to notice until the cumulative effect hits. Tallying those decisions inside the spreadsheet is what makes them visible. Instead of encountering a vague sense of "I should do more," you face the stark numbers. Another hour here means one less somewhere else. That's not philosophy, that's accounting. And in the same way, financial discipline builds wealth slowly, time awareness builds capacity. A student who maps essays next to exams understands instantly that procrastination will cost sleep. A new parent writing down real childcare hours sees not just exhaustion but the narrow gap of opportunity still available. A manager breaking down their meetings discovers entire afternoons have dissolved, and strategy has no room. These conclusions come not from magical surplus, but from confronting the rigid constraint directly. So the goal isn't to wish for more hours, they're not coming. The goal is to register exactly how the 168 are already divided, then make sharper decisions. It means measuring how much of your life is already locked in and how much remains up for grabs. Once you know that, priorities begin to align and excuses lose their force. That is the essence of the 168-hour reality check. It's not an optional exercise or a gimmick. It's the foundation needed before any other productivity method can work, because it shows you the real playing field. Which brings us to the next step. Once you've confronted the fixed total, the next logical question is, what are those hours usually filled with? What does a week actually look like when you look at the national averages and see how people are truly spending their time right now in 2025? That breakdown is where patterns emerge and where most of the shock comes in. How we actually spend our hours in 2025. So if we want to get real about time in 2025, the first step is to map out how those 168 hours actually play out on average. Forget the hacks for a moment. Forget the lofty productivity plans. The raw accounting already tells a story. And when you line up the categories, sleep, work, commuting, chores, leisure, and scrolling, the picture is less about spare time waiting to be filled and more about a calendar that's carrying weight before you've added anything ambitious. The Bureau of Labor Statistics American Time Use Survey makes this concrete. In 2024, adults reported 9.04 hours per day sleeping, 5.07 hours per day on leisure and sports, and 2.01 hours per day on household activities. That's nearly 16 hours claimed every single day by just 3 buckets. Suddenly, the week doesn't feel very wide open after all. Start with sleep. It is the single largest category. Roughly 7 to 9 hours per night is the norm, adding up to nearly 50 to 63 hours each week. Spread across your 168, that's close to 1/3 gone immediately. And this isn't optional padding. Cutting sleep below that average doesn't create a clean gain in usable hours. The cost comes back as fatigue, slower thinking, and mistakes that expand the time needed for everything else. Which means sleep isn't a negotiable block. It is a foundational one. Work follows close behind. For most adults, full-time schedules still rest in the 35 to 45 hour per week zone, though it often creeps higher. Emails at night and constant notifications stretch totals without always being accounted for. Even in hybrid settings, skipping commutes often translates into more tasks rather than actual reclaimed hours. Put conservatively at 38 to 42 hours per week, work devours about another quarter of your total. Now compare. Between sleep and employment, you've crossed the halfway mark of your week without ever touching meals, laundry, or your phone. Commuting has become more variable, but it hasn't vanished. Roughly 50 minutes per day remains the average for those who travel daily, adding up to about 6 hours a week. Hybrid schedules shave this down, maybe to half that, but the point still stands. 4 to 6 hours is rarely counted in people's mental math. And yet, it's equivalent to a course lecture series or a short creative project. Most don't see it because commutes vanish in autopilot runs of trains, cars, or buses. Household activities sound minor. They're anything but. Across 2024, Americans reported an average of just over 2 hours daily on cooking, cleaning, laundry, and maintenance. Over the stretch of a week, that's 14 to 16 hours, basically 2 workdays. For families, this multiplies into caregiving and logistics. Even single adults, however, lose enormous blocks to basic maintenance, much of which never shows up in productivity chatter. The surprise comes only once people quantify it. A day off quickly dissolves into a string of chores that run until bedtime. Leisure fills more time than most expect, and the data splits it in interesting ways. Roughly 5 hours per day on average go to leisure and sports. But within that, screen-based entertainment dominates. Streaming, television, and background shows absorb 15 to 20 hours a week for adults. Video games add a few more hours for many. Hobbies like music, books, or fitness have smaller slots. Leisure isn't waste. It's important for mental health and resilience. But when the bulk of that leisure comes from default screen consumption, it helps explain why intentional pursuits, like learning a language, practicing an instrument, or developing a craft, feel squeezed to the edges. And then there is scrolling. This is the category that has expanded the fastest, though numbers depend heavily on age and demographic. Industry reports suggest younger cohorts, particularly those 18 to 24, approach 5.1 hours per day on social apps alone. Broader adult averages fall lower, but the scale is still striking. Pushed across a week, even a conservative average adds up to around 20 hours of screen time. And much of this is not remembered. Fleeting video loops, endless feeds, AI chats, side experiments with new tools, all of which create the sensation of activity without much to show for it. For younger users, those totals rise sharply. For older ones, the amounts plateau but still represent a staggering diversion of hours. The key nuance here, scrolling is not an equal drain across all demographics. But when it does claim time, it forms one of the most dominant weekly categories. Now add it all up without dragging listeners through endless math. Sleep near 50 hours, work around 40, commuting 5 or 6, chores 15, entertainment 18, scrolling 20. Together, that already sits in the neighborhood of 150 hours out of 168, which leaves less than 20 hours open, barely 2 or 3 hours on an average day that you can call your own. And that's before you add children, side hustles, classes, or volunteer work. No wonder the feeling of being out of time is so pervasive. It is not a private failing. By the averages, the math crowds you out before motivation ever comes into play. This is where empathy matters. The point here is not to shame you for hours spent relaxing, scrolling, or maintaining basic needs. These are systemic patterns, documented across surveys and studies. The data helps us see that the sense of time poverty is built into the structure of modern life. Whether you're young and scrolling half the night, a parent burning through chores, or an office worker drifting between meetings and emails, the pull of the averages shapes you, which means the blame belongs less on individual weakness and more on how society carves up the week. Yet what often surprises people even more than the totals is the clash between hours and energy. You can sleep the recommended totals, protect your calendar, tick off the obligations, and still stumble through the week feeling overdrawn. That introduces a different problem. Not of missing hours, but of missing fuel. And that puzzle asks a harder question. How can you log so much rest, yet still feel exhausted? Sleep, energy, and the surprising drain. The conversation about hours often stops at totals, but the real challenge lies underneath. Sleep and energy don't behave the same way. National data shows this clearly. According to the American Time Use Survey in 2024, adults in the U.S. averaged 9.04 hours of sleep per day. On paper, that looks comfortably within expert guidelines. And yet, reports of fatigue, mid-afternoon slumps, and reliance on coffee remain almost universal. The mismatch comes from assuming that more hours automatically equal more usable energy. Sleep quantity may be high on average, but the hidden factors, quality, timing, and rhythm, decide how much of that rest shows up as alertness the next day. Take the pattern most common among younger adults. While the 9-hour figure covers the population, many students and early career professionals get less, often 5 or 6 hours, especially on weekdays. Others catch up on weekends by oversleeping, which creates what researchers compare to jet lag without the travel. Inconsistent timing erodes the body's natural recovery. 7 well-timed hours at consistent intervals can outperform 9 fragmented or irregular hours. That is why people can live inside the averages yet still feel drained. Sleep is not just about duration, it is about alignment. Circadian rhythms explain much of this. Our bodies run on a roughly 24-hour cycle, with predictable rises and falls in alertness. Within that, ultradian cycles, smaller waves lasting 90 to 120 minutes, shape focus and fatigue across the day. Research from workplace studies and energy management literature shows that attention follows these curves, not fixed work blocks. That's why periods like late morning tend to produce sharper concentration, while the post-lunch hours feel heavy no matter how much sleep you clocked. Fighting that rhythm by forcing constant output doesn't work. Aligning tasks with peaks and inserting recovery in troughs generates stronger results. In other words, managing energy, not just passing hours, is what sustains performance. Imagine a typical desk job. 2 people sit down from 9 to 5. Both are well rested, yet productivity splits sharply. One produces high-quality work in 3 to 4 morning hours, preserves energy with short breaks, and still has bandwidth in the afternoon. The other powers straight through, fueled by caffeine, and drifts into errors after lunch. By 5 o'clock, calendars show equal time, but actual output differs. The lesson isn't that one had more hours, it's that one protected energy cycles while the other ignored them. Diet and movement layer onto this pattern. Quick snacks or heavy lunches spike blood sugar, then crash it. Long sessions at a screen flatten focus until the brain zones out. However, multiple studies show that light activity, like a 10-minute walk, resets focus more effectively than an extra coffee. Micro breaks look small on the schedule, but deliver value larger than their footprints. Ignoring them turns available hours into low-value hours, where tasks stretch long and mistakes multiply. 2 points illustrate why this matters. First, inconsistent sleep timing reduces the body's ability to restore itself. A few late nights can tilt memory, mood, and attention for days. Keeping sleep at regular intervals builds more energy than simply chasing higher totals. Second, micro-recovery actions, short walks, pauses, stretching, preserve usable energy through the workday. 30 minutes without a screen before bed works the same way. It primes the brain for restorative cycles instead of disruption. Without those small habits, you can log impressive totals on a spreadsheet and still drift through key hours in a fog. Here's one suggestion supported by sleep research. Protect your wind-down period. Dedicate at least 30 minutes before bed with no screens and minimal stimulation. This signals to the brain that rest is approaching and smooths the transition into deeper cycles. It's not about perfection every night, but about setting up consistency. Over weeks, this routine magnifies the restorative power of sleep without adding extra hours. Consider how this applies over the 168-hour week. On the time map, you might proudly mark 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night and feel certain that the box is checked. But unless sleep timing is predictable, the environment is calm, and recovery is built into waking hours, real energy will still fall behind. That disconnect explains why one person leaves work on time with tasks closed, while another lingers long into the evening despite technically having enough rest. Schedules don't break down only because of overcommitment, they break when rest quality is overestimated. Energy poverty has another subtle dimension. Many people believe that if they meet the sleep target, the day should automatically perform at full capacity. But those lost 20% of daily energy, not enough to notice outright but enough to drag work, represent several hours where potential evaporates. 3 drowsy hours look active on a calendar, but in practice they're compromised. Across a week, the result is dozens of unproductive hours camouflaged by presence. This gap reshapes how the spreadsheet should be read. Time tracking tells you where the hours go. Energy framing tells you whether those hours count. Sleep quality, rhythm, and recovery practices decide if the hour you label as work carries substance or empty time. Ignoring that split makes schedules look fine until they collapse under fatigue. Respecting it reclaims focus without needing extra hours. Ultimately, time management only holds up if it runs alongside energy management. Spreadsheets can count sleep blocks, but they cannot measure consistency, alignment, or how well the day is structured around natural cycles. That part is a conscious choice. Protect rhythm, pay attention to recovery, and you stop losing hours to invisible drains. Ignore it, and the week erodes beneath you, even if the numbers look good. And here's the deeper problem.